Greetings once again from Cooperstown, New York, side of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum. And we're very glad that you could join us today for another in our continuing series of virtual voices of the game. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bruce Markuson. I work in the education department here at the Baseball Hall of Fame. But today it's my great honor to spend a full hour and give most of our microphone time to our very special guest, Alyssa Nakken. Alyssa Nakken was a three-sport star at Woodland High School in California. She then went on to a standout softball career at Sacramento State as an all-conference first baseman. And of course, this past year, Alyssa has made major headlines as the first woman to serve a major league team as a full-time coach. Just completed her first season with the San Francisco Giants. Alyssa, first off, congratulations on what you've been able to accomplish thus far. Welcome to the program. How are you doing in these weeks after the season comes to an end?
Well, thank you, Bruce. Thank you so much for having me and all of those kind words. And hello to everybody. I can't see you, but I can feel you there. So yeah, I'm good. The off season has been pretty good. You know, we wish that we were playing a little bit deeper into October, but it has been nice to kind of take a breath and have some time and space to reflect on the 2020 season and reconnect with family and some friends and just sort of enjoy and take advantage of the downtime.
There's a Hall of Famer, Rogers Hornsby, played many, many years ago. And there was a very famous quote attributed to him. People asked him what he does when the season ends. And he says, "What do? I sit by the window, I look outside, and I just wait for the next baseball season to start." He obviously was not very happy during the winter, but I get the sense that you're busy and that it's not as difficult a time for you.
Right. We're certainly staying busy, staying in touch with our team, and our staff stays in touch very regularly. But there is a lot more downtime than there was in that very shortened season of the 60-game season. So I am trying to just take advantage of this time and rest and recover and really just prepare for the 2021 season. So I am ready. I have the itch to get back to it. So I'm just looking forward to the day we get the call to move down to Scottsdale.
We should point out Alyssa does live in San Francisco, so not too far from Oracle Park. So she is close to the Giants headquarters. Alyssa, I want to go back to your younger days. Tell us about growing up. It was a community called Woodland, California. You were a three-sport star at the very least. You may have played some other sports, but I know that you played softball, basketball, and volleyball. Tell us a little bit about growing up in Woodland. What kind of community is it?
I loved my childhood. Just feel so fortunate for the small town that I did come from, and just the support and the encouragement that I've had from that community at a very young age. I think it's important to note that I have two older brothers, and I honestly think that from them, that's where I get my strength from, because at a young age, I needed to learn how to fend for myself, as they too were athletes and strong and fast. And we are very competitive. And so I learned at a very young age how to sort of take care of myself and remain active and just put myself in every sport possible so that I could keep up with my brothers. So my childhood is just filled with sports and a lot of time outside. I was never a kid that could sit still. My elementary school days, I'd go to school in the morning and early afternoon, come home, crush the homework, and then go outside and play with the neighborhood kids. I think I ran or played some sort of tag game almost every single day of my childhood. And that just sort of propelled me into playing as many sports as possible. High school was challenging in ways, but I loved the sport component to it. I loved representing Woodland. My dad went to Woodland High School, and it was a fun school to go to. You know, public school definitely has had some ups and downs, but I really enjoyed and was honored to represent Woodland in all the sports that I played. I was extremely competitive. Again, I think that came from being the youngest sister, but I had so much fun playing sports. And when I was young, I would watch baseball games or all sports with my dad, and I remember him talking about how important it was to him that athletes that were on the court or on the field were also entertainers, that they understood that part of their role is to entertain a crowd and entertain fans. And I really took that to heart at a young age. And in high school, I thought of myself as an entertainer. So, and I think that came out in the way that I played. I had so much fun on the court, on the field. And part of my goal each day was to entertain the crowd. You know, I certainly wasn't the best athlete in every single sport that I played, but I was up there and competitive. And I think it was because I just tried to make some pretty remarkable plays in regardless of what sport I was playing. So Woodland was a great town to grow up in. I think that as I was getting, you know, as an upperclassman in high school, we all kind of had that itch to get out of the town and go on to something bigger. But for me, in the back of my head, it was like, well, I really love this town, and it's, you know, there's some comfort here. My family's here. So I am very lucky. My parents are still in Woodland in the same house that I grew up in. So it's such a joy for me to be able to go home, you know, for the holidays or on breaks and spend time with them and reflect on my childhood.
Yeah. Roughly, what is the population of Woodland?
It's about 50,000 people.
Okay.
And growing. It might be closer to 55,000 now.
Now, some might call that a small town, but here in Cooperstown, I mean, that's almost a major city.
Yeah,
We have
that's true.
1,800 people who live here full time. So you're about 25 times the size in terms of.
I should correct myself on that. But for me, I think it just felt like a small town because I felt like everybody knew each other, particularly in the sport world. It was, you know, it's a small world, as they say in the sport world. So to me, that's why it felt like a small town vibe.
Yeah. You know, we hear about a lot of young athletes today. They get funneled into one sport, their best sport, whether it's baseball, basketball, softball, hockey, what have you. You had more of an old school approach. You were a three-sport star: softball, basketball, volleyball. I personally feel that's the better way to go. I'm old school as well, but I would think you look back at that and say that was a positive experience for you doing that.
100%. I think that made me such a well-rounded athlete. I was, you know, I played softball and soccer year-round until high school. Then I gave up soccer and stuck with softball as a spring sport, but continued to play it year-round, and then volleyball in the fall and basketball in the winter. And quite honestly, I think I just developed strength in muscles that I wasn't necessarily using all the time in softball that I was in basketball or volleyball. And I think it made me stronger. It made me more athletic, and it made me a better competitor on the softball field. I also think it's important that you kind of diversify the groups, the teams, the coaches that you surround yourself with. And just playing multiple sports throughout, you know, childhood and through high school, I learned so much about the importance of team, the importance of communication, and the kind of the challenges that come with being a competitive team. And each team was different, was filled with different types of personalities and competitors and coaches. And I just learned how to navigate through the variety that I was around. And I think that certainly helped me in my career now. And also, I had so much fun playing the sports that I couldn't imagine going through high school not playing as many sports as possible. And for others, it's so different. Like they want to focus on that one sport and, pursue that sport in college. And that's amazing. There's a lot of benefit to that as well. I also think I probably would have become a better softball player had I spent more time in the cage, less time shooting hoops. However, I wouldn't have changed any of that for anything. I'm so fortunate, and I'm proud that I stuck with my intention of playing as many sports as possible, as long as I could.
I think you certainly picked the right approach. As a youngster, you developed some role models. Here's one of them, Jenny Finch, known primarily as a standout softball pitcher, but here playing some first base for Team USA. I was going to say, why Jenny Finch? In a lot of ways, it's obvious. She was a big-time star. But did you ever have a chance to meet her, get her an autograph? Was there something about Jenny's personality that really made you latch on?
Yeah, Jenny was, I think, one of the first softball players that I saw on TV at a young age. And that's when I knew, like, oh, wow, I can go on and play softball in college, or I can pursue playing softball at the Olympic level. And it was just because I saw her on TV that it kind of sparked this interest and this determination in me to get to that next level. I did have the opportunity to meet Jenny when I was in college. She and her dad were running pitching, actually, I think just overall softball camps throughout the country. And they came to Folsom, California, which is not too far from Sacramento. And I went out there and got to meet her, and I got an autograph. It was for my brother because he had a big crush on her, but it was just great to talk with her. And I think what I connected with her on the most was her relationship with her dad. Her dad is such a huge supporter of her. He had the full-on catcher's gear and would sit in the bullpen and catch her as she was growing up. And he would have to add on layers of gear, the bigger and stronger she got and the faster she threw. And that is very similar to the relationship that I have and had with my dad. And so that was just fun to see. And she was and is so appreciative of the support that her dad has shown her. And I am forever grateful for the support that my dad has given me, both just from like encouraging words, but also the blood, sweat, and tears that he had to go through being my catcher growing up. So that's really what we really connected on. And she's done so much for the game of softball and for young girls and older women. And she's still somebody that I look up to. She's found her voice. She is continuing to pursue opportunities to continue to pave paths for other women, and particularly the game of softball.
When you met Jenny, she treated you well?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, there's so many people always around her trying to get an autograph or try and get some pitching tip from her. And she really made time to connect with everybody around her and learn something from you too. And that's how I'm approaching, my days now. There's certainly a lot more people that are talking to me, and I really lean on how she conducted herself amongst a big crowd of people trying to get a picture or an autograph.
Well, she's very charismatic, very outgoing, great with the media. So I'm not surprised that you had a good interaction with Jenny Finch. And I think it's one of the reasons that she is so successful. Now, you went on to play softball at the collegiate level after being a standout at Woodland High School. You played at Sacramento State for the Hornets. And I have to ask you about what is on the right side of your face there. You're getting ready to fire that ball toward home plate, I presume. What exactly is that?
It's eye black. Eye black was a big thing for us in softball at Sac State. I've seen other colleges wear it too, but I don't know. I really liked it at the time. I don't mind it now. I certainly wouldn't wear it now. But it was just, yeah, we were putting on our uniform, and my uniform wasn't complete without the eye black. So yeah, to this day, I still have that mentality. Every time you step onto the field, you're going to war, you're going to battle for your brothers and your sisters in that dugout. So back then, I just felt I looked and was more intimidating with the eye black.
And again, you went the old school approach. You see a lot of the players today, they have the strips that they use. I remember growing up in the 70s, watching players like Bucky Dent. They use the old-fashioned lamp black that you actually spread under your eyes. And that could obviously run down the face. It appears to be doing just that in this photograph.
Yes, it's doing that. I also think that if I remember correctly, a teammate would put it on me and actually make the stripes. So, but yes, I never put the stickies on. That just wasn't the real thing.
This photograph, was this a home game?
This was.
Let's talk a little bit about your career there. You were a terrific all-around first baseman. You consistently hit over 300 with power. As I understand it, you made all conference all 4 years at Sacramento State. And that is Division I, correct?
It is.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is top level college softball that you're playing. And you were obviously really good at it. But at some point, did you realize, there's no pro league to go on to? There's amateur competition, that sort of thing. But in terms of a professional league, that really was not an option, would not be an option today. So at what point did you start to think, I'd like to do something sport related, maybe that's not exactly connected to being an athlete?
Yeah, growing up, my goal was to become a Division I softball player. Early on, I understood that professional softball, though it does exist and is fairly successful, it was impossible to make a career out of it. However, now that's changing. There's much more opportunity for endorsements, and you can really build your own brand and use the platform of playing softball to gain a strong following and different sponsorships and things like that. But for me, I kind of knew, that playing professionally really wasn't going to be in the cards for me, and I was okay with it. I was quite honestly ready to be done with softball, as crazy as that kind of sounds. But, I was married to the sport for 18 years, 17 years, every single summer was in a car or a plane traveling across the country playing softball. And, through college, I knew, that once my senior year was coming to an end, my softball career was going to come to an end. I didn't think too much beyond graduation day and what that would look like for me. However, my senior year, I did jump into the athletic department office at Sacramento State and did an internship and just started to learn a little bit more about what goes into college athletics. Obviously, I understood it pretty well from being an athlete at the college level, but there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. And it was a great sort of like foot in the door to start to gain an understanding of how the NCAA works and what operations entail to put together a softball team or football team or just college athletics in general. And again, I didn't really know that careers in sports existed, even though I was surrounded by people working in an athletic department. But I just figured that, once I graduate, I needed to get a big financial job and stay in Sacramento and work 9 to 5 and all of that, which for some people, that's great. And for me, I tried that. I attempted that. And very early on in that short career knew that that wasn't for me. And I wholeheartedly missed sports. I missed being a part of a team. I missed that competitive drive that I had every single day being an athlete. And so I really looked and looked deep inside and asked myself, how do I get back to that? And I noticed that the University of San Francisco had a very incredible sport management master's program. And I figured, this looks like a great next step for me. So it was about late 2012, early 2013 that I knew and realized, hey, I think there could be an opportunity for me to have a career in sports.
I'm glad you clarified what I said, that there is no real national sports softball league. It's more of a localized thing, but there's nothing the equivalent of the WNBA at this point. Perhaps there should be, and perhaps that's something that you'd like to see. I think a lot of people would like to see, but that's certainly not the case now, was not the case when you were coming out of college. Now, you mentioned going to grad school, but also something else happened around this same time. After you graduated from Sacramento State, you had an opportunity to join the San Francisco Giants. This is your first go around with the team, and you become an intern. How did that come about?
Well, I was just starting out in the graduate program at the University of San Francisco. And again, they have a great reputation and have a great connections with all sports leagues and teams in the country, but primarily in the Bay Area. And I've mentioned this already, like I have this competitive drive and this love for being around a team. And when I moved to San Francisco and got my feet wet at the start of the master's program, I pursued an opportunity with the University of San Francisco's baseball team and just wanted to be around baseball, wanted to be around that coaching staff, and just wanted to learn more about the game and, again, more about like college athletics. And soon, very early on into the 2014 college season, the Giants had a baseball operations internship open up. And that opportunity was shared with the heads of the sport management program. And it was a pretty good fit for me to apply and take a chance and interview as I was getting experience at a baseball operations level with the college team. So that's kind of how that came about. It was, again, I'm happy that I saw that notification of that internship opportunity come through because I almost missed it actually. But I applied and was given the opportunity in March of 2014.
So you were involved in analysis, evaluating players, that sort of thing?
Yes, a wide range of things. I mean, it was an internship, so you're doing so many different things for so many different people. And I loved every single bit of it because I was learning about different aspects of baseball operations at the professional level. And I wasn't just dedicated to one thing, but I got to assist a variety of executives in the operations department. 2014 also was a World Series year. So that set the bar high for what life is like for the professional level. But during that postseason run, my role sort of expanded and I worked with a variety of other people within the organization. And that's when I really started to develop not just relationships, but also a reputation as somebody who's just down to help and willing to sacrifice a lot to help push the company, the organization, and the team forward.
Wasn't Brian Sabian the general manager at that time?
Yes, he was. Yes, yeah. I remember my interview. I did not know that I was going to be interviewing with him, and he was the last interview that I had. And again, just so thankful for him and Bobby Evans and Jeremy Shelley for taking a chance on me back then.
All right, I've got to ask you about one of my favorite players who has been in the Giant front office for a long time. I'm decades older than you, so I go back to the Yankees of the 1970s, and they had a pitcher, Dick Tidrow, Dirt as they called him. He was a starter, reliever, middle guy. He could close. He could do just about everything. They called him Dirt though because he had a bit of an unseemly appearance. He was often unshaven. Did you get a chance to know Dick Tidrow at all there?
Yes, yeah. Dick was not in in the front office in San Francisco too much throughout the year. He was off traveling all over the country and just trying to acquire the best players possible for our organization. But during the 2014 draft is when I got a chance to meet him and spend some time with him. And then again, during the postseason. And Dick is somebody who can command a room, and he just is so intelligent and has a great way of just communicating things. And it was so awesome to kind of just be a fly on the wall in a lot of meetings and just watch he and Sabian and John Barr just talk about the future of our organization, the current status of our organization, and how to put the right pieces together. So he's a great guy, great guy.
Does he still have the Fu Manchu mustache?
He did. I didn't see him at all this year, but the last time I saw him, he sure did. And it is epic.
Yes, it's good to know that some things don't change. All right, we fast forward now to this past January 2020. When the Giants announced that they have hired you as a full-time coach. This was obviously a major news story. We were talking about it here at the Hall of Fame. Of course, it was before the pandemic, so all of our staff was pretty much here on a regular basis. There was a lot of conversation on social media about it as well. Tell us how this whole thing started. Who interviewed you for the job, and who ultimately hired you to be a full-time coach with San Francisco?
I would say this journey started in early 2019 when Bruce Bochy announced that he was going to be retiring at the end of the 2019 season. During that time, I was working full-time in the front office, and I was also kind of starting to think deep about what my next step was going to be. I had been with the organization since 2014 in a wide variety of roles. And in my last role, I was there for about 3.5 to 4 years. And I was really ready to take that next step. And I had to look within and figure out, okay, what does that look like for me? And what are the opportunities within this organization, within baseball, that I can pursue? And are they going to align with what it is I truly want to be doing on a day-to-day basis? And so 2019 was very much an exploratory year for me. I was obviously doing my day-to-day job and also taking on some additional tasks that the front office was quite honestly in need of. I was part of a group that started a employee resource group for women. And that was really kind of what sparked me in understanding the importance of going outside of your lane. I think that so often people say, like, hey, just stay in your lane. But if you have the opportunity to make another lane stronger, why not do that? So that was sort of my mentality all of 2019. And I was just trying to challenge myself as much as I could and sort of just continue to build my resume and be on the lookout for what that next opportunity could be for me professionally. And if I needed to step outside of the organization, then I was honestly ready for that. So 2019, the season comes to an end, and the job hunt, the interviews start for who our next manager is going to be. At that same time, kind of parallel with that, I started to knock on almost every single executive's door within the front office and just sit down and have a conversation with these people. I wanted to just learn what their day-to-day was. Even though I was around it, I kind of saw it, but I wanted to learn even more. I wanted to learn about what their vision was for the future of this organization. I wanted to learn where they thought we had the most holes in the organization, and if there could be potentially opportunities for somebody to step in and fill those holes. And it was just a very much like in grad school, we called them informational interviews, where you, as the person who's kind of like less status, is interviewing the executive and asking them a ton of questions and getting a feel for who they are and where they see themselves. So I did that kind of throughout October and the early parts of November. Scott Harris was also was just recently announced back then as our general manager. So got a chance to meet with him and kind of hear his vision for the organization. Fast forward to mid-November, right, probably about like a year ago, almost to the day, and Gabe Kapler is announced as our manager. And the next morning, he came and addressed the front office before he spoke to the media and had a press conference. And it was in that kind of speech, that introduction, Farhan introduced he and Scott together, and Cap had a chance to have the floor, and he just talked about past experience, his vision for the organization, what the Giants mean to him. And through this sort of speech that he was giving, I was starting to get really inspired. And I was sitting with one of our team owners, Rob Dean, and I looked at him and said, I'll run through a wall for this guy. Like, I want to be a part of this team. And I was just re-energized, and I knew, okay, I think that there could be an opportunity for me in this organization at a higher level than I'm at now because of all of the newness that's happening in the front office and on the field, on the team side. So again, had to do a lot of my day-to-day job, but I met Gabe Kapler officially kind of in the service tunnel at Oracle Park, and he was in the middle of doing all of the pitching coach interviews and just starting to put his staff together. And I had a chance to kind of just talk with him about what that process was like and get to know him a little bit more. Soon after that first interaction, he had reached out again and mentioned like there was an opportunity and a role that he was looking to fill on his staff and wanted to talk to me about it. He didn't really mention what the title was or anything like that. It was more about just, he has this philosophy and this vision of bringing the best available people together to form a complete team or a complete staff. And it was about a month. It was kind of all of December and into early January that we just got to sort of know each other and learn about the past experiences we both have had. And that was actually the interview process. So it was he who I was interviewing with multiple times throughout like that Christmas break. And then meeting with Farhan and Scott as well. And my approach to it, though, was I didn't know what I was interviewing for, quite frankly. I just knew, and it was very apparent to them, that I wanted to come in and step in and kind of help bring this brand new staff together and ensure that they can kick off spring training and the start of the 2020 season without any hiccups, because Cap hired, everybody was new to these coaching positions with the exception of Ron Wotus. So it's 12 people coming into a brand new organization. And for me, though I wasn't, coaching for the Giants, I'd been with the organization for 6 years and felt like I could help be sort of like a glue person, bring this staff together and be a part of it as we pursue this next step, that is the 2020 season. So that was the interview process. Cap was the one to make the final offer, and it's been a whirlwind ever since.
Yeah. It's interesting because you hear with some teams, the owner or the general manager, to be more accurate, will say, I'd like two or three coaches that I could pick, and then maybe the manager picks the rest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly, how it worked with Kapler, if he was able to pick all of his coaches, but obviously he wanted to pick you. That he spearheaded the whole thing.
He did. Yeah. He actually mentioned, in the beginning, because that's something I asked him later on, was like, well, why me? Or like, how did I come about? But Farhan, I had known Farhan, but that was, far at the end of Farhan's first year with the organization. And I had done some work with him throughout that year and was part of a project at the end of 2019 that he was a part of. And I think that he saw how dedicated I am and how committed I am when I have a problem in front of me or an opportunity in front of me, I take it and run with it and add value where value is needed within the organization. So he kind of saw that firsthand and mentioned to Cap, as Cap was putting together his staff, that maybe talk to Alyssa just a little bit more and see kind of what her experience has been and where she wants to go. So that's my understanding of it all.
Yeah. Now Farhan is team president, right?
Yeah, president of baseball operations.
Yeah, he's the final say with personnel moves. And then there's a separate general manager and obviously some other lieutenants underneath him as well. When the Giants hired you in 2020, I was trying to remember reading some of the stories. And as I recall, they announced that you were going to do a lot of pregame work, especially with the outfielders. You were going to work with them on positioning, shifting. I know that there's other things that you've done as well, but am I recalling, is all that accurate in terms of what was part of your job from the get-go?
Yeah, that's all accurate. And to be like completely honest, the way Cap works is like, he doesn't want to ever put somebody in just a box. So it was never really like shared publicly exactly what my role was going to entail. And there was some strategy behind that because he didn't want to just put me in a box and like keep me just narrow focused on one thing. The title assistant coach was, I think, so beneficial for me because it allowed me to understand, okay, I'm an assistant and I'm here to assist all of our coaches in every aspect of the game. So that's really what my role was all season long, was, an assistant coach. And I wasn't just focused on one aspect of the game. I got to help in all areas with a heavier focus on outfield play and base running. So with that, I got to spend a majority of my days and my time each day with Antoine Richardson, who is our first base coach, outfield coach, and really be kind of like, we were a team, or we are a team. We talk about that a lot, how, that's how we were approaching each day is, okay, how can we help each other put these players in the best position to win?
Now, part of the job working with the outfielders, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I want to bring this up, even though it may be a little bit of a sensitive subject, but there's a former San Francisco Giant player, who shall remain nameless, who was rather critical of the Giants when they announced your hiring. I actually got into it with him on Twitter a little bit.
Oh, wow.
I'm a no-name, and I don't even know if you read my tweets, but I kind of argued with him, and I didn't really agree with his points. And he tried to make an argument, well, how does somebody who's been a career softball player, how are they going to help outfielders in baseball? And I tried to point out to this former player, and other people on his Twitter feed that, throwing a softball, throwing a baseball, there's not a heck of a lot of difference. Certainly catching a ball, taking the right route to the ball, hitting the cutoff man, it's all the same. It's different if you talked about hitting in softball versus hitting in baseball. But in terms of fielding and the fundamentals of outfield play, it's pretty much the same. So I thought the argument that they made was pretty bogus. Your thoughts on that?
Yes. Well, one, thank you for for that and having my back in that. And you're completely right. I mean, there isn't much difference to the routine of outfield play from softball to baseball. And again, I think it's important to note that I was hired as an assistant, not to come and overhaul somebody's swing or overhaul the way somebody throws the ball or makes a pitch. Again, I was here to assist the coaches and put them in a position to come to work every single day to be ready to make a difference in these athletes. And again, yes, the dimensions of the field are much bigger. So getting to an understanding of that to help assist us with what our model was going to be for positioning took some time, but it's because of who I am as a person, as a hard worker, as a teammate that allowed me to succeed with our outfield group. Again, Antoine Richardson has been a huge mentor through this, and I've been somebody that has helped him through this process as well. So we go at it from like a team aspect, and we help our outfielders with whatever it is they need. These guys are major league baseball players. They know how to play the game. And I learn from them every single day as much as they learn from us as coaches. And I think it's important that coaching isn't necessarily always about making like the physical adjustments to somebody, but it's also about understanding each athlete at the human level. And you could be the best baseball player in the world and have a terrible season. And for us as coaches, it's our responsibility, it's our job to do everything that we can to help that athlete reach his full potential every single day. So with that, it's getting these guys prepared from a physical standpoint, but also a mental standpoint before every single game and throughout spring training and summer camp, which was this year, and then also in the off season. So we are resources to help keep these Major League Baseball players' skills as sharp as possible every single day.
I imagine too, Alyssa, there's other things that you do that a lot of coaches do, hitting fungos to the outfielders, throwing batting practice, if that is needed as well. Here's something, though, that you got to do in the exhibition season, the game just before the regular season started. It was against the Oakland A's. They wanted to give you a chance to be on the field because, as I understand, once the season started, you wouldn't really be in the dugout during the game. You'd be elsewhere. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but they did want you to be on the field to have the experience of coaching first base in an exhibition game. Here's a great photo of you with Mike Yastrzemski, grandson of Hall of Famer Carl Yastrzemski. I know it's only an exhibition game, but tell us the thrill this must have been being a first base coach in a game between the Giants and their rivals, the Oakland A's. That must have been a blast.
It was. And that day was special for so many reasons. It was also the day that we got to compete against people that weren't our team. This whole pandemic and the shutdown of the baseball season in mid-March and the back and forth from the league and the Players Association kind of all spring and into early summer was an emotional roller coaster for so many people. And there were days and moments where a lot of people thought, we might not play baseball this season. And so this day was so special because we got to look across the field, and in the other dugout, there were people that were not wearing Giants uniforms. And so it was kind of like, okay, we made it. We're here. This season is starting. So for that, that was such a thrill. And leading into that game, we were playing many intra-squads during our summer camp, which was our kind of spring training round 2. And again, Antoine is our first base coach and somebody that I learned from daily. And it was in my role, obviously working with outfielders, but also working on base running. And in our inner squads, I was coaching first base throughout camp. And so I was getting very comfortable over there and getting the reps there. And then we get to the Coliseum in Oakland, and it's like we're getting into BP and Antoine comes up to me and he's like, hey, get ready. Like, I'm going to have you coach first, starting in the 7th inning, kind of like nonchalantly. And I kind of took it as like, okay, yeah, like this is my job. I'm here to be, to coach. And, I've been taking the reps in the inner squads and in summer camp. Like, I'm so ready for this. And it allows Antoine to get in the dugout and kind of see things from a different perspective and talk with other coaches while our team is on offense, which he doesn't get to do as a first base coach because he is on the field. So it's just there were a lot of elements to it. And that's how our staff works, is just getting people in positions and gaining different perspectives from other areas to help us kind of sharpen our tools, sharpen our weapons, to be as prepared as possible every single day and going into the season. So that was sort of the strategy behind it. And then in our next game, I was coaching the whole game. And yes, it's thrilling. It was amazing to be on the field and in the game. There are no fans, however, so it wasn't like there was some like big cheering section or anything. It just quite honestly just felt like just another day. And it wasn't until I got back into the clubhouse and was on the way home and had my phone, and then I realized like, oh yeah, I forgot, like these games are televised now and people can see this. So it was just quite an honor, and I have so much gratitude for Antoine for giving me that opportunity. And there's also a sense of pride in myself for working extremely hard throughout spring training, the shutdown, and then summer camp. This opportunity, coaching first base in a inter squad or a exhibition game or spring training game, was actually going to come about in March during spring training. And then we got shut down right before that game. And quite honestly, and Antoine and I talk about this, I wasn't ready back then. Like I was not ready to be out there on the field during the game. And I just needed I needed to put in more work, more time. I needed to connect with the players a little bit more to be ready to go. And that's where I really, we as a staff didn't miss a beat during the shutdown and or summer camp. And so then by the time this came about, this opportunity, I wasn't nervous. I wasn't questioning if I was ready. I was ready, and I went out and had a great time being out there.
As first base coach, those games, did you have any tough calls? Do I send them? Do I not send them? Close pickoffs? Anything like that happen?
We had a couple of close pickoffs, but we were ready for it. There was nothing crazy that happened. I didn't miss a sign, thank goodness. I missed a sign in one inter squad game, and I vowed to never miss a sign again. So no, we were ready. We played really well those two games, and we were just so excited to be playing a different team and starting the season. So.
Now, was I correct in saying that once the season started, you were not in the dugout? You were maybe somewhere else in the ballpark? Is that true?
Yeah. So during the games, I was kind of floating between being in the dugout and then also in our cage. And we had a hitting coach down in the cage, and then I was kind of a runner between the cage and the dugout. So what I was doing was really kind of monitoring the opposing team's bullpen and determining and seeing who they were getting warm and getting ready. And then I was working with Kai Correa, our bench coach, and Cap, and our hitting coaches to determine who our pinch hitters were going to be that game. And so it was kind of my job to go back and forth from the dugout to the cage and get the guys ready down in the cage for an opportunity to come into the game in a later inning, and then also work with our hitting coach down there and ensure that we had all of the appropriate video that we could. MLB gives you some iPads to have in the dugout and in the cage. And so we had some clips of just the opposing pitchers and getting the guys ready physically and mentally to come into the game that day or later that game. And then I was also working with Antoine and positioning our defense throughout the game. So I was kind of all over the place, back and forth.
Yeah, it's a new way of coaching. You're moving all over the place, all over the ballpark. It's really a fascinating thing. We do want to take some questions over our last 10 minutes or so with Alyssa, and we have a number of questions already. Our first one comes in from a gentleman named Russell Steele. Alyssa, do you have any comments about the strike zone in the last game of the season? I guess there was some controversy there, Alyssa.
Yeah, that was a little bit heartbreaking. We were so close. We were one game away from going into the postseason. And, there was some controversial calls as it relates to balls and strikes. And, it's just unfortunate we wish that we would have got a couple extra calls to go our way. And, but that was tough. It was a tough way to end the season. And it also just sparks a lot of motivation in all of us. And we never want to feel that way again. So I think that's what's really driven us to come into this off season and really prepare for 2021. So in my opinion, the strike zone was a little wide, but we can't change that now.
Were any of the coaches, including yourself, getting on the umpire verbally?
There was, we had, that was the last game, and there are no fans. So your screams and your yells really get into the umpire's ears. So I think he heard a lot from our dugout. But that's part of the game. I don't remember yelling too much. It was more of just that gut punch feeling of like, dang it, we're so close. But there were other points in the season that we had opportunities to take it. So we still say balls and strikes are for umpires. We're going to focus on what our go zone is and attack the game in every way that we can control.
Next up is not so much a question, but a comment from Glinda. And she says, I'm a regular attendee to these Zoom calls. There are usually 2 or 3 women, including me, that watch, but there are more women on this call than any others I have counted at any time. Thank you for being a role model for my 10-year-old granddaughter who loves baseball. You are showing her that girls can be athletes and that girls can do anything and that girls love baseball too. So Glinda has been with us for just about every program, so She wanted to pass that message along to you.
Well, thank you, Glinda. I appreciate that. And it's awesome that you've been on all of these calls. And I thank you for that. I'm inspired by the stories that young girls come and tell me, and inspired by those that want to continue careers in baseball. And so that's really what drives me every single day. And I'm so grateful and fortunate to have so many women and men that I've been able to look up to my whole life and that have helped open this door for me. So it's my responsibility to continue to pave this path, and I'm going to continue to learn as much as I can every single day and just keep pushing forward in hopes that one day we have more females on this call than men. Who knows?
That could happen. Next up from Tom Roback, was the short season an advantage to getting used to the day-to-day, the grind of the baseball season, or would you have rather just gone with a whole 162?
It's hard for me to say like what I would have rather done. However, I will agree 100% with that first part of the question. There were moments where I was like, this is kind of nice to, have this shortened season, not have a lot of fans, any fans in the stadium, because it really allowed me to our only focus was the players every single day. There wasn't so much outside noise that we had to, or were getting distracted by. So to that, there was some benefit in that. And it allowed me to feel a little bit more comfortable on the field every single day and with these athletes. And the 60 game season, yeah, it's like there's so much energy that goes into one game, and you're exhausted by the end of the night. You wake up, you do it all over again. And in my head at the end of the season, I'm like, well, we would have had 102 plus more games in a regular season. And it's mind blowing, but it's also like, gosh, I really wish we were able to do that, because I think back to that 3-month shutdown and just how much, not negative feelings I had, but quite a lot of anxiety around the anticipation of the season. And I would have much rather been playing and showing up to the ball field every single day. But yes, there's a lot of benefit into this shortened season. I was able to really get into a good like flow state, and our coaching staff were able to determine, how best to work with one another. And I feel like we're just now scratching the surface. So we are so ready for a 162 game season, plus a few extra games.
Yeah. We have a question from Vincenzo, and this is actually a question I wanted to ask. Did you receive any negative heckling at all through the season? Not so much from the fans because they weren't at the games, but maybe from players on the other teams. Did that, not asking you to name names or tell us what was said, but were there any instances where players on other teams maybe said some things they shouldn't have?
Not that I can remember or that I heard. I might have just been like blind to it or like deaf ears to it. But quite honestly, no. Everybody that I came in touch with or in contact with was so supportive and encouraging and open. I tried every single day to talk to an opposing player or manager or coach and just learn something about them, not necessarily baseball related, but like what their pregame routine it looks like, or what their shutdown, their quarantine time was like. And again, just coaching is about relationship building. And so that's what I really set out to do. And I didn't hear too much heckling, or really any for that matter. It could have been, I'm sure it was happening, but I didn't hear it. I felt very respected every single day throughout the season. And again, no fans, so didn't have to worry too much about that. But I'm pretty tough, so I can take it if it comes.
Very good. We have a question from Jeff Idelson, who is the former Hall of Fame president. By the way, he lives in San Francisco as well.
Oh.
And he has this question. Can you ask Alyssa what advice that she would have for young women wanting to get into baseball coaching, and what she feels is the future of more women on the field? Thanks, Jeff. So that's Jeff's question for you.
Thank you, Jeff. Maybe I'll see you around the city sometime. So to answer that first question, advice to young girls that want to get into baseball and baseball coaching. I think my biggest piece, I think there's quite a lot just from my experience and others, but a big piece of advice is to ask questions and connect with people and network. And not necessarily network by, and this is just went back when we could, but like going to networking events that were labeled networking events. But quite honestly, you don't always build a network as strong as you would like at those events, but be very intentional about building your network. The sport world, the baseball world specifically, is very, very small. And there's so much to learn from so many people that are in this industry that have done what you want to do or that are currently doing what you want to do. And I think that every single coach, every single player, every single executive in baseball has a different story, a different path. And one, it's encouraging and you learn a lot. Also, two, it's fun to learn and ask questions about other people's stories, how they got there, what their biggest challenges were, what their biggest challenges are, and just take that and don't take it as in, I want to follow this person's path to a T, but just take it and kind of arm yourself with that information and that knowledge and that relationship with that person. And you'll be surprised at just how many small doors start to open.
Mm.
I think that you just start to, if you're introduced to one person, they can introduce you to somebody else. And soon enough, you're learning so much about different people and different roles and different job opportunities that are out there. And also two, you're becoming acquaintances or even friends, potentially a mentee of somebody that could one day open a very big door for you into your next step in your career. And then to the second part of that question, the future of women in baseball. I mean, it's coming. I think that you're starting to see kind of in all industries the importance of diversity of thought and diversity of perspective. And as females, we bring that to a team, we bring that to an organization, we bring that to a corporation. And I think that you're starting to see so many more women take seats at tables that are typically held primarily by men, and they have the confidence to hold their ground and share their voice and share their perspective. And the men are starting to see just how valuable or invaluable those thoughts are, and that these women can truly make a difference in their industries. And Jen Wolfe is a life skills coordinator for the Indians, and she started this WhatsApp and Slack channel for all of the women that are currently in Major League Baseball. And we're on that channel every single day, just learning from each other, sharing our stories, sharing what our day-to-days are. And I'm already starting to see women see other potential roles or paths that they could take in baseball. So I think that there's going to be so many more women entering not just coaching roles, but also executive roles in Major League Baseball and for specific teams. And it's gonna come fast, in my opinion. Like, there are so many rock star women that are in baseball right now. It's just a matter of time that they start to get put into some elevated positions.
Last question. It comes from me, Alyssa. Looking ahead toward the 2021 season, I think we're all hoping that it'll be a full season, and I'm actually optimistic that's going to happen. I think we're either going to have a full season or very close to it. I think we're going to have much more than a 60-game campaign. But in terms of your individual responsibility, are the Giants planning any changes for you? Are they going to expand your role in any way? Let's give us a quick preview of what might be happening for Alyssa next year.
So quick preview is that I'm remaining an assistant coach, and my goal is to become the best assistant coach I can possibly be. I've learned so much this last year through all of the ups and downs that 2020 has been. And I'm just ready to kind of start off like on that path that I was on at the end of the 2020 season. So I'm going into 2021 much more prepared as to what to expect, much more ready to sort of handle all of the sort of extra roles and responsibilities that come with the historical nature of all of this. And I'm just ready to add more value to this organization. My role won't change too much in the day-to-day, but it will expand. I think that, we're going to continue to advance our positioning model on the defensive side. Antoine and I are kind of advancing how we're going to approach what our base running strategy will look like next year and all of that. So again, this whole staff, we were new at the 2020 season. Now we have one season under our belt, and we're kind of just ready to continue that momentum that we built this year and head into next year. So role won't change too much, but I'll be much more like prepared and ready and looking to seek out different challenges next year.
Well, that's terrific. As we get set to wrap it up, perfect timing for us doing the show today, because we just got an email from our curatorial staff that the jersey that you donated, seen here on the screen from your very first game as a coach, has just gone up into a third floor exhibit that's called Your Team Today. It features lockers from all 30 major league teams, And your jersey, number 92, Nakken, is now in the Giants locker up on the third floor. So that just began today. And we appreciate your donation. And I'm sure you're thrilled of the timing of this.
Absolutely. It's such an honor, and I'm humbled by it. And I still have trouble wrapping my mind around all of this and gathering the right words to say. But I'm just so thankful for the support system that I've had, in Woodland, just kind of circle back and tie a bow on all of this at the start of our conversation. But just the support, the coaches that I had, the parents of friends that I had that helped me through times, in my childhood. And then obviously my coaches at Sac State, and then the entire Giants organization, they've just helped me grow. I've essentially grown up in that organization. And it's quite an honor to have this responsibility and to come into work every single day, getting to do what I love and also have wonderful conversations with people like you.
Well, Alyssa, it's been our honor and pleasure to talk to you. We really appreciate your time for more than an hour talking about your first season with the Giants and looking ahead to what I am sure are going to be some additional successes. You're obviously you've got the terrific attitude, the outgoing nature, the knowledge of the game, and you're going to do quite well. I have a strong feeling of that. And
thank you.
I'm just thrilled that you could join us this past hour.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much for the invite, and thank you to all of you who showed up to listen to this and the wonderful questions that you've asked.
Once again, our thoughts and appreciation to Alyssa Nakken, assistant coach with the San Francisco Giants. Looking forward to Alyssa starting a new season, spring training, hopefully in February of 2021. We thank everybody for joining us today for this special edition of Virtual Voices of the Game with Alyssa Nakken. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.